The show focused on delivering beneficial information on everything to do with products and services that can improve your life. This is Experts on Call on AM 650.
And welcome back to Quay Pacific's Talk About Strata. Sterling Fox and Tony Giventu here on AM 650. And it's the spring cleaning edition of the program. Tony has been stockpiling emails from the past few weeks, and we have quite a number of them left, and we'll try and get through at least a couple more here, Tony. Radio at keypacific.com if you feel the need to jot down an email to us and fire it off to us after the program tonight. Here's one from Suzanne, who asks, can a proxy be worded so they cannot be collected and used to vote for one person for council? Just before you respond to Suzanne's question, I don't think I understand Suzanne's question. What is the point of the question? I'm not a Strata resident, so perhaps there's a nuance here that escapes me.
Well, I think that what Suzanne is getting at is come the annual general meeting, somebody's collected up 10 or 20 proxies.
Okay.
And that person is controlling the outcome who's on Strata Council because they've got 20 votes at the meeting when you might only have 35 people registered at the meeting.
Aha.
And so that is a proxy piling, as we refer to it, is a little bit of a complicated problem for Strata corporations. Most Strata owners...
It's vote stacking.
It's vote stacking. And
Okay.
most Strata owners choose not to go to their annual meeting for a variety of reasons. Sometimes annual meetings have just grown to be more contentious and more controversial and adversarial, and homeowners don't live in a strata to deal with stuff like that. Sometimes it might be a very quick annual meeting where there doesn't look like there's any increase in the strata fees, there's no bylaws to vote on, we're just going to elect a council who's the same council as last year, everything's fine, why should I take my time, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
Sometimes you will actually end up with people who intimidate owners. They will go around with a pile of blank proxies, door by door, and they will intimidate people into giving them their vote. And that's another problem, of course, that occurs within a strata.
Oh.
So what occurs is you have individuals who want to control the outcomes of meetings,
Yes.
and they collect large numbers of proxies, and that is a problem that strata corporations have to address. It's impossible to have a bylaw that limits the number of proxies a person can hold, because then you deal with who's going to be allowed to have an eligible vote at meetings,
Right.
and how that decision is going to be made at a meeting. And if it's a bylaw, to enforce the bylaw, you have to give reasonable notice of the violation, the alleged violation, time for a hearing, writing for an answer. You can't do that at an AGM, right? It's not possible to do that at the AGM. And the other thing is, one owner wouldn't know that another owner has given a proxy necessarily to the same person.
Sure.
So there'd be no way of knowing whether their voting rights could be affected. So there's no way of really limiting proxies that a person can hold without violating the property rights of individual owners to actually issue proxies.
Okay.
If I can't go to a meeting, I'll give you my proxy. But my proxy is kind of like, think of it this way, it's kind of like a power of attorney over my property.
Right.
I'm giving you the ability to vote for me.
Mm-hmm.
I could give you some instructions, but that's between you and me. I'm telling you, I want you to vote on the budget. I want you to elect council. I want you to do a variety of things. When the strata sends out their notice package, they send out a sample or an optional proxy form.
Right.
If the strata wants to at that point, they could actually put on the form, this proxy form or this proxy may not be used for the purpose of electing council.
Aha.
Right?
So, Suzanne, there may be a little light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, it is a strategy that a strata corporation can do. They can actually restrict it. But the problem with the proxy form is the proxy itself, the form is optional.
Right.
Somebody could blank that out and copy them and get a whole bunch that don't have that restriction on it anyhow.
And I think in Suzanne's case, she's just uncomfortable with the, vote stacking nature of the process as it can be in some instances.
Well, and I think all owners should be uncomfortable of that. And owners should take a much broader interest in their property. They need to take a real interest in property and show up at their AGMs. An interesting phenomena is happening, though. We're seeing it now. Strata corporations are starting to get their depreciation reports. And with their depreciation reports, they're starting to realize we're going to need more money sooner.
Right.
So at their AGM, by majority vote, which they can legitimately do. They're amending their budget, so they're increasing their contingency contributions substantially.
All the more reason to pass on the proxy and show up.
Show up at your meeting, because a number of owners in the past year have discovered, hey, wait a minute, we weren't at the meeting. How could the budget have been amended?
How could this have happened?
And our strata fees are going up 25%. Are you kidding? And absolutely, that's exactly what occurred. Show up at the meeting. Stop giving proxies to people. It's the best way to stop this problem from happening.
Excellent email, Suzanne. Thank you for that. Here's another one for you, Tony. This is from Chris, who says, by the way, it's great to listen to the station. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate that. He's asking, what does an owner do when the property manager doesn't communicate, somehow does not send the AGM package, still does not communicate, even after his president and supervisor apologize on his behalf for failing the owner? Where does an owner go from this point? The Strata Act and bylaws are not enforced here, and I don't know where to go to get help.
Well, the licensed strata managers in British Columbia are licensed under the Real Estate Services Act and the Real Estate Council of British Columbia, and they regulate those requirements under RISA and the regulations with respects to strata managers and brokerages. This would be a contractual duty of the strata corporation, between the strata corporation and the strata management company.
Right.
So if the strata
They've hired this
council,
guy and he's not doing his job.
they've hired the company's assigned this guy to the job, and if
Yeah.
he's not doing his job, strata council needs to sit down with the owner of the company, who is obviously the supervisor by the sound of it,
Right.
and say, look, we want another manager, you need to fix this, we need to move on with this.
Right.
And if that can't be remedied, there are a lot of companies out there. Terminate services and go hire another company.
Oh,
Don't,
okay.
you know what? It's an employee-employer relationship. But the strata corporation is contracting the services to a company. If the company is not fulfilling your obligations, they're not complying with the contract, terminate their contract and go hire somebody else.
Chris, as an individual owner, can probably begin the process at least by collecting a few like-minded individuals to show up at the next meeting and bring some pressure to bear on the Strata Council going, look, we're paying for this service from this property manager, and the guy's a total flake. So
Well,
either you get him replaced, or we replace the company.
Exactly. And strata corporations change relationships frequently. I would want to look at this question closely and find out where this relationship or this process broke down, though.
Okay.
If there is a communication problem between the strata council and the manager, then that's a problem that needs to be resolved regardless of who you hire.
Right.
Whether it's another company, that problem will continue to perpetuate, right? So it's important for the strata council to have a very clear business plan. You know, we talk about it in a number of shows. You're managing a corporation that has a $25 million asset.
Mm-hmm.
As a board of governors, you need to behave like a board of governors who's supervising staff. If the staff are not doing their jobs and they're not performing, terminate them, get new staff. And with respects to the management companies, the maximum termination period with no penalty is 60 days. So if that's not working, then change the relationship. But at the same time, look at your business practices as a strata corporation. Don't fix companies and change it and let it happen.
Chris, thanks for that email. Hopefully we've been able to help all of our emailers on the program today. Tony, thank you for collecting these and bringing them to the spring cleaning edition of Quay Pacific's Talk About Strata.
I think we'll have a fall house cleaning edition too.
It's going to be a busy summer. We'll see you next time here on AM 650.